Welcome to another episode of the Pitcher Perfect podcast. We are in episode 5, and we are going to go ahead and go into some listener questions, as we've had quite a few people write in with different questions based on topics we've already talked about, some that we haven't, some that we'll approach later on. We hope you enjoyed episode 4 with Amanda Scarborough. We had a ton of fun recording that one. So I'm going to throw it to you, Holly, because you are the gatherer of the questions.
Yeah, thank you guys for all the feedback, great questions, and we're just going to jump right into it because, this episode's going to be coming out right in the middle of the College World Series, and I know you guys have lots of games to watch, so we don't want to waste your time. We want to get right into it, and with that being said, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about the World Series. I fly out on Thursday. Are you going to be making an appearance in and out from AUSL?
I don't know yet. I won't be there Thursday for sure because AUSL is kicking off and we'll be in Chicago. It's going to probably be hard pressed to go in and out, but depending on what the championship series looks like, if my Horns make it, then I might try to get down there.
Yeah, you guys gotta watch some really, really good games coming at you. So, all right, let's jump right into it. So the first listener submitted question, we got a lot of this one. It said, we've seen a lot of pitchers throwing back-to-back days in postseason. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, my first thought goes to, well, you throw back-to-back days in travel ball, right? And sometimes 3 times, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I'm not saying it's always right, but it is something our bodies are capable of handling. Now, I think the big thing that college offers that travel ball, high school doesn't necessarily, because you have to do it more on your own, is there's a recovery piece. So in college, there's post-game meals, so they're fueling correctly. They have an athletic trainer. A lot of times a masseuse travels with them, especially in the postseason, so they're getting a massage if they need it, icing or stretching or heat or whatever it is their post-game recovery. Plus then you talk about they travel with the recovery boots, ice baths, you name it. So I'm not surprised and I'm not against it. As somebody who threw a lot in her college career, the big piece was making sure I recovered the way I needed to. And so for me personally, I love icing my arm. It was just made, whether it works or not, because obviously there's science on both sides. For me, it made me feel like my arm recovered, it rested, it cooled down. Before, when I first started, it was like all the plastic ice bags all the way down. And then my trainer and I actually came up with, he took a towel, like a really long, not your normal dish towel, but kind of a little bit longer one. And he would put the crushed, kind of like the Sonic ice in the middle. And he would fold it. And he would wrap the towel all the way up my arm. And it didn't go all the way up. It went to probably my bicep. And then we would go ahead and put the ice packs on my pec and the back of my shoulder. But that was a way, like, for my arm, because the ice bags would normally melt and fall off from bicep down faster. But it was a way for my whole arm to be iced. And it sometimes meant I had to stay in the training room longer. I didn't get to, go out and see everybody's family. My family hung out for the extra 15, 20 minutes, knowing that it was just what it took. And then I'm also a huge proponent for ice baths, especially with your legs. And you can do those in the hotel room. And a lot of times the teams will if they don't have access to a training room. So I'm not against back-to-back days. I'm not against back-to-back days if you have a pitcher that is in shape and can do it. I think that's the other piece is these athletes, especially the aces of staffs, are being trained to have the endurance to do some of that. Now, I think the question comes in is if your athlete says, hey, something's sore or too sore or hurting, you have to listen to them. But, there's a lot of extra stuff that goes in with recovery. And especially in the postseason, nobody had the late game and the morning game. So you have almost 24 hours from warm up to warm up or more to be able to recover and regroup. And please tell me a competitor that you're going to find that's going to say, no, I threw yesterday. I don't want the ball.
Yeah, and I think that's a really big part of it too is, well, first of all, differentiating for our travel ball folks out there, but differentiating between championship season and, fall or the games that really don't mean as much, maybe in October or September. But when you get to championship season, you're going to be sore sometimes. That's a part of the game. And I think that understanding the difference between normal soreness and being injured, there is a difference between the two. And also, when it is just soreness or you're just, having a hard time getting going, it's going to take you maybe a little longer to get stretched out and move around if you've been throwing back-to-back days. But that mental component, I think, is a big piece that when you're in championship mode, postseason right now we're talking about for our 8 teams left in college, but it's just this mental piece that helps you push through. Like knowing that, no, I want the ball, like you just said, but I want the ball. This is a big game and I want the ball. And our minds are capable of pushing our bodies through a lot when we are mentally tough. And again, I'm not talking about injury, I'm talking about just everyday soreness that, when you use your body a lot, it's a part of the game. But being able to have that mental toughness that you're going to want the ball no matter the circumstances. I don't care if I just threw yesterday and the day before, or even 2 games in a day. I know they don't really do that now in postseason, but it used to be, double
Yeah.
headers. And there were a lot of pitchers that threw back to back games in a day. And that's the model right now for travel ball. But again, just differentiating between, am I injured or am I just sore? And if I'm just sore, hey, when you're a competitor, you can push through that. And
Right.
having the mindset to say, you know what, like, I want the ball. I want the ball. My body's capable of this. And training yourself, like you said, endurance wise, to be able to pitch back to back days, back to back games.
Right. Well, I mean, you think about it. We saw Jordy Ball start and throw 3 complete games, right? You saw Carlin Pickens appear in all 3 games in that same series. Basinger and McCubbin for Clemson. They split the game, but they both threw all 3 days. Tegan Cavan threw in all 3 days in that matchup. South Carolina uses the staff approach. Sam Gress and Jory Hurd, they appeared in all 3 days. So, I think some of it is pitch count, some of it is knowing your pitcher. Obviously you look at Jordy Ball, she's a specimen. She's probably one of the most athletic humans I've ever laid eyes on. So she's going to be able to do what she did 3 days in a row, and maybe day 3 she's feeling it. I don't know, she might have been feeling it on day 2, but she's knows that her body can take it and can do it. I think the big thing to me would come up if somebody threw all 12, 14 extra innings kind of thing and started the next day. That's where I might be like, okay, if the pitch count got really high, like it's a lot to make them turn around and start the next day. But again, the recovery piece and the training piece leading up to postseason is so different when you're in college. And so, I think too, though, you and I could, and maybe this is a topic for another day, but like we could talk about how our travel ball pitchers can warm up better, can cool down better, can be able to take control of their body to help them. Obviously last year at Alliance, I had one that she ended the Alliance tournament 11-0. So she pitched in 11 of our games. And, we faced freaking elimination, I think 13 different times. So she was throwing every day for, how long is our tournament? 6 days?
It's a week, I think.
It's like, yeah, 6, 7 days. And so, there were days that her parents found a cryo place and she went and got in cryo. There were days that, she had to do some extra stuff, or I told her to get up and get walking around to let the blood start flowing and not sit around all day because we didn't play till the night. So maybe that's a topic we talk about in the future. But there are ways for you to enhance your ability to be able to go back to back. And, I don't wish 6 and 7 days upon anybody. I had to do it when I was young too, but it's sometimes part of the game. And if you're a competitor, I mean, I tried not to pitch her one game. I really did. Were you guys still around when we played Dickel at the very end, that night game?
Yeah, I think I was
So,
watching on TV together.
yeah, so the plan was not to throw her. Like I was not throwing her. I told her, I was like, you're down this game. Like, and it was an elimination game. We had to win. But I was like, you're down until the very end of the game. And they got 4 runs and she's staring at me. I mean, like laser holes through me, like just staring at me, waiting for me to tell her to go. And I said, no, she wanted the ball. And I ran 3 other pitchers down there. We got close. We tied it. Well, once we got within 1, I told her, go start tossing. Then as soon as we tied it, I looked at her and I said, okay, you're in. You want it? Let's go. And, we ended up having to go extra innings with them, change fields because of lights and whatnot. But, we ended up winning and she ended up getting the win in that game. But, I mean, I was trying to rest her and I got told, like, she stared through me, like, tell me to go warm up. Let me go warm up. I'm pretty sure if she weren't a kid that I had spent 3.5 years with, like, giving lessons and stuff, she would have gone and warmed it up on her own. But she knew I probably would have come out there and yanked her by the ponytail back to say, sit down and rest. But, I did give her a rest the next morning. She didn't have to pitch our first elimination game against Impact, but it's pretty incredible when you take care of yourself, like what you can do. So I think that's kind of the big key when we're talking about back-to-back days and performances.
And one other thing that you touched on was pitch count. And I think something that a lot of pitchers and coaches even don't always factor in is your ability to lower your pitch count just by working efficiently. And I mean, if you want to talk about wasting pitches, I mean, yeah, when you
That
don't
could be
have
That's a whole 30 minutes by itself.
When you don't have control and you're walking people and you're throwing way more pitches than you need to, that's going to elevate your pitch count and honestly probably waste an entire game that you could have thrown. Versus if you're just working efficiently, like you can throw a lot more games if you're able to put the ball where you want to put it and eliminate those waste pitches
Yep.
and batters.
Yep. I talk a lot about that, especially with our bomber coaches. But like when you're 0-2 and 1-2 and you throw pitches 8, 10, 12 inches off the plate unnecessarily, like don't get me wrong, there are times where a hitter can reach it. So yes, you need to space it out there. But when you do that unnecessarily simply because you don't want an 0-2 or 1-2 pitch hit, that's like, let's say that's every batter for the whole game. So we're saying 21 batters, 1 to 2 pitches. So you're wasting 21 to 42 pitches. You are putting 21 to 42 extra pitches on your pitcher's arm versus what they throw because they happen to miss their spot.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's a lot.
yeah, again, that's a whole topic for itself. Let's write that down.
Would be, yeah, in the comments if you want that to be a topic. I think that's a really good one.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
all right, should we move on to the next one?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to say this is a cat question exclusively. How to throw a peel drop. That would be your specialty, Cat.
Yeah. So the biggest thing, and again, I think it was a little easier for me, as I've mentioned, I threw the bullet spin fastball. So I wasn't used to throwing something down spin. And so I say benefit because I wasn't having to try to adjust my fastball to be a drop, but also difficult because I hadn't been throwing anything four seams to where I had to learn how to like completely spin it different. I think the biggest thing I tell athletes when they come and if they've thrown a down spin fastball is you're staying behind your fastball to get speed on it, right? And when you're trying to throw a drop, you're not trying to stay behind it. You're trying to be behind it enough that you can pull out from under it. So I don't have a whole ball here, but I have the half ball here. So the first things I also tell them is like, as much as possible, I do have big fingers, so this isn't possible for everyone, but you want your thumb and your middle finger lined up as much as possible. Because when they're going towards a target and they work together to pull, now that line is going where you want it to go. And then obviously if I want it to go like inside or outside, I can tilt this finger. A lot of times when my drop got off, this finger started shifting one way. Normally mine goes out, but shifting off the line one way or another. So another selling point for having a line so you know your fingers are on it. But I think the big thing is when you get down to release is that instead of trying to snap behind it, you're trying to let it roll. And I almost think like this kind of lets go to let it roll. And then from here, my fingers are just trying to pull and make it spin down as much as possible. Body posture should be the same as your fastball. I know a lot of people try to get athletes way on their front foot, although I've seen that less lately, thankfully. But if you get too far on your front foot, then it's not creating that tunnel of going out and down. It's just going down. And you want it to create the same tunnel. So thinking about still resisting against, but then you can get on to over your front side quicker and more often than you do on anything hard. But the big thing is really letting it roll into your fingertips and feeling those fingertips pull on this seam like out from under. And I would say if you've seen magic shows, but I don't think those are a thing anymore, but the magicians used to pull the, tablecloth out from under, and so I feel like that's what I'm trying to do is quick and pull up and let that ball spin down. Yeah, that's the best way to think about it because it does have to be quick. You can't be slow in pulling and get enough spin to make it drop.
Right. Okay. That was really good. So go home, try it. Tape your softballs for sure. Another selling point for that.
Yeah.
All right. Is Tommy John surgery rising in softball? And how do you overall just prevent injury? And I would say, do you see that Tommy John is rising in softball? I don't know that I've necessarily seen it, but I know that's really common in baseball. Have you seen it commonly in softball?
I haven't seen it commonly. Now, again, you got to remember we are in an age with like social media and stuff that you see posts that you and I growing up would never have seen, right? Like a dad might have read it on a message board when we were in high school. Like that was the only real, I guess, social media you could claim. But I have seen it, yes. I think how to prevent it, not 100% sure. I'm going to say, again, warming up correctly, cooling down correctly. But I have seen it in pitchers that overpronate. So when you're talking about on the backswing and you're starting to come down, let me see if I can get myself in camera view.
Tommy John, to clarify to all of you out there who are not sure what it is an elbow injury.
It's an elbow. It's an injury to your ulnar nerve. basically right here. Baseball gets it, 'cause especially when they throw curveballs and they try to like go on the side, like they put a lot of pressure here. So I say that we get it because when we come down, if you're coming down and overpronating, so you're going this way, you're putting a lot of pressure here and all around here. So the big thing is making sure that one, as you come down, like there's not pressure here. There shouldn't really be pressure here, even if you're throwing curveballs and whatnot. The other thing is, as a screwball, if you're a heavy screwball pitcher, I think if you get in and you overpronate going through, you can put a lot of pressure on that. But I have a pitcher who actually just had it, or I said, I coach a pitcher, I don't give her lessons, and she threw an off-speed curve, and in order to throw that, she overpronates. And that puts a lot of stress on that forearm and the elbow. I think it's a lot of people trying to get in a position to throw upspin pitches, which isn't bad, but you have to make sure you're not going too far. And behind you even, like you have to make sure you're staying in your circle and not allowing that wrist elbow to start to rotate behind you too much.
So would it be safe to say that proper mechanics and just kind of staying in touch with making sure that you've got a good foundation with your mechanics, mirror work, I think is also a really good thing.
Yes.
Watching video yourself, just kind of seeing what your body's doing and being aware of what your body's doing is probably one of the best ways to prevent injury overall. But
Yeah.
good solid mechanics and then good rest recovery, good warm-ups, making sure that you're really just taking care of your body in softball typically should prevent most injuries.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think a lot of it, and I see so many pitchers do drills now, and it's fine with like where they start like this. And okay, but this already is a very tense position.
Yeah.
Where if I'm like this, or even like this, like I teach the ball facing away from me. So if I'm open, the ball's facing my open position. I don't teach being here. I teach getting there as we come down, right? Because if I'm here, like this already on me is tight right here and right here.
Right.
Well, what's in the middle of those two tight spots?
Yeah, your elbow.
My elbow. So I think making sure you're feeling your body too. Like as you pitch, nothing should be tight. Like your muscles should not be tight. They should be loose so they can whip.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think there's some rise in it. But again, I could have known people having it growing up or thrown against people who maybe end up having it and just didn't know because it wasn't posted everywhere. And I think the other piece you have to keep in mind too is, you can correct me if this didn't apply to you, but like I didn't lift prior to going to college. I tried like a couple times in the summer leading up to college, but I was still growing. My dad didn't think I needed to be on a huge lifting program. I did some band work, but I didn't do anything like heavy. So I think the other piece is making sure your athlete isn't in the weight room doing things incorrectly. That could be then harming their mechanics, their body, all sorts of things. So, I know especially here, there's a lot of high schools that kids will come and be like, Coach, I'm a pitcher and this is what they have me doing. And I'm just like, whew, no, you don't need to be doing that. So we have to have that conversation. So I think it's an overall concept of trying to be bigger, faster, stronger early. But at the same time, are we doing that to a detriment to our body?
Yeah, I think in general there's a lot of talk about overuse, and I don't think throwing a lot necessarily. I mean, I was that type of pitcher that could just go and go and go, and I really didn't have any injuries, but I was very well conditioned. I didn't, like you, I ran a lot in high school. I didn't lift necessarily, but I was well conditioned. But it wasn't overuse of doing things incorrectly. Like, I think I had good mechanics. I was pretty smooth. My mechanics were smooth, not jerky, not tense. And I think that when we talk about overuse, when you're using your body a lot in an incorrect way, that's what's going to lead more to injury than anything else. Then, if you've got nice, smooth, fluid mechanics, everybody's body's different, but you're probably a lot less likely to get injured, and just more so making sure you're doing things right than, oh my gosh, I got to stick to this pitch count. I can't throw too much. Like, it's good to be self-aware and all that kind of stuff, but number one is just making sure that you're smooth and fluid and your body's in the position that it needs to be in.
100% agree.
All right. To the next one. I like this one. How to be louder on the mound if that is not your personality.
I like this one too, because my gut wants, and trust me, as somebody who is, I don't know that I'm the loudest, but I'm loud in just the fact that you can tell I'm intense. Like my face says it, my reactions to strikeouts say it, my reactions to big defensive plays will say it. My reactions to umpires will say it. Like, I'm intense, I'm into it. But my gut wants to tell you to, like, be you. What is you, and why do you feel like you have to be louder? Because I will say, I coached an athlete that is pitching in college now, and she's not loud by any means, but she will carve people up. She will jam you, she will hit spots, she will spin the ball. And I got to watch her sister compete at a high school playoff game this past year. Unknowingly, I was going to watch our town's high school, and they were playing her sister, and I didn't know it, but I was pleasantly surprised. And her sister's not loud either, but you could tell still that the defense fed off of her ability to get outs and hit spots. And, she would smile when she'd get a big out or hit a good spot or strike out or whatever. And so I think you have to decide is like, what is loud in your mind? And if that's not you, why do you feel like you have to meet that standard? And then if you feel like you're missing something on the mound, like what is it that you're missing? Because I think you don't have to be a big personality on the mound. Yeah. Some people can play with big personalities, some people can't. But if you are someone that just goes about your business, that's fine. I think the one thing you can do is connect with your defense. And so it's like, while you're going about your business, you can just look at your shortstop and nod. Or you can just, hey, I got you. Or, hey, this one's coming to you if you think you're going to throw a drop outside or whatever. You can connect with your defense in order to keep them in it with you. And that's the one piece I think we don't talk about a lot is how pitchers can connect with defensive players and make them feel in it with them. But at the same time, like, you don't have to be the yeller, the screamer, the fist pumper. You can get a strikeout, jog off the field, and just high five everyone. But I think you need to just find a way to connect with your defense. And if your defense is loud behind you, they're doing the job, right? But I mean, I know that sounds kind of ironic coming from somebody who like fist pumps and yells, and some of that became a little bit more extreme as I played into pro ball, especially with, the stakes a little greater and people have seen you more and you're trying to, outsmart them and be a little more crafty. I think there's something to being true to who you are, because at the same time, you may start to play loud and your performance could go here because you're not used to playing at that heightened state, whether it's emotions, mental, whatever. So you have to figure out what state do you perform best in, and then figure out how your defense can back you up with that.
Yeah, I heard a sports psychologist talk at the NFCA convention years ago, and he equated it to like a stereo. And when you turn the stereo up too loud, it's not clear, it's muffled, it's just not good quality. But if you turn it down too low, then you can't hear it, obviously, and it's finding that kind of that perfect balance. And everybody's got their perfect balance, and I think that it's figuring out where you perform best at and not turning it up too high that now all of a sudden you're accelerating your heart rate or you're not in a good zone for you. But I do think while you don't need to be vocally loud on the mound, having a strong presence is important. And just having a strong persona, like I said, it doesn't have to be vocal, but being able to flip a switch when you get out on the mound and a certain kind of presence, I think, is important. You don't want to be so calm that you're just kind of like a dud out there either. You got to have some kind of something, but it's like, just finding that switch, or you can equate it to like a fire, turning on the burner. You don't want to turn it too high and you burn yourself, and you don't want to turn it too low because then you don't have a flame. You got to kind of find that perfect flame, and everybody's got a perfect flame. It's going to be different for everybody, but figuring out what works for you. But there's got to be some kind of flame there. It doesn't have to be vocal. Like I said, I'll keep saying that. It doesn't have to be vocal, but it's got to be something there. You got to have some kind of persona, some kind of presence that says and that you're confident and that you have ownership of the field, ownership of the mound, ownership of yourself. But you want to exhibit that kind of energy to some extent. But again, like, I wasn't loud on the mound. I was zoned in. I definitely had a persona, but I know that for me personally, if I was loud, like, it just got my heart rate up. I got kind of distracted. It just, like, that just wasn't me. I didn't perform well that way. Now put me in the outfield, and I'll be the loudest one on the field. I can perform well yelling from the outfield, not on the mound, though. That's different. But kind of figuring out how you perform best, how you get in that quote-unquote zone, but having a presence of some kind. And if that's not your natural personality, maybe you are quiet, maybe you're shy, but trying to figure out how the competitiveness in you can kind of pull some of that out. You got to pull some of that competitiveness out of you to some extent. No, now what that looks like is going to be different for everybody, but
Yeah, you have to compete and there has to be something within, but you don't have to be outwardly loud. I think that's the biggest thing. And I've had pitchers that have developed into being louder because they get more intense as they get confident and they see success and progress. And then I've also had pitchers that just, they stay here, which is great because the emotions don't make them that change the way they throw. But at the same time, if you're in a big situation, like you have to still want the ball. And if you don't, then that's a gut check. So I think you don't have to outwardly be louder. I think the biggest thing is that your teammates know you're competing, whatever that looks like.
yes, yeah. Knowing that you want the ball, that you're not scared out on the mound. I
Right.
think Tony uses this really great example of an airplane pilot and that, you're the pilot out on the field. So your passengers are going to feed off your energy. When you hit turbulence, if the pilot comes on and he sounds nervous and he's like, oh my gosh, like buckle up, we're going through like really rough air, I don't know, like, and he projects nervousness, all of a sudden all the passengers are going to be like, oh my goodness. But even on the inside, and no matter what's going on in the cockpit, he's going to come on and try to give the passengers a sense of calm, like we got this handled, no big deal, and that's really what you want to do as a pitcher, no matter what is going on internally or no matter what's going on during the game. That, you can hit a rough spot, maybe it's not your best day, but you're not showing the rest of the field, and you're certainly not showing your competitors in the competition that you're not feeling good that day or you're questioning yourself.
Right. You just have to have a presence. Find your presence. That's all it is.
Okay, and we got time for one more question? Yeah? All right. So the last question is it okay to shake off signs when you're on the mound?
Yes. And any pitching coach that tells you can't, I don't want to say they're wrong, but they're not open to allowing you to have the confidence you need. So I will say there are times. So like there are times where in a game, like let's say in the fall, we're working on things with some of my pitchers. I need to see what can work, what can't. So it'll be like, hey, this inning or the next 2 innings, I'm going to call your pitches this way and I need you to accept it and let's go. Like it may not be what you're comfortable with, but we need to see if this, and this can work in situations. And so there'll be times occasionally and like I won't let them shake me off, or like I did in college, there was a fall that they didn't let me shake because I would shake off a curveball into a right-handed hitter every time because it was just a pitch that made me uncomfortable. So there are times where you can work on things as a coach and say, hey, no, you can't shake me off. But when you're in a game and it matters, your pitcher needs to have confidence in what's being called and they need to have conviction with what they're throwing. And if they have any doubt after you call in the sign or punch in the sign, it is not going to go well if you force them to throw it.
Yeah.
Like it's just not. I occasionally, now that I say it, you'll probably hear me when we're across the field from each other. But if I know I'm calling something they might not be comfortable with, as I'm calling it, I say, stay with me, meaning if they don't throw it the way I want it to, it's okay.
Yeah.
But like we need to try to throw this to set up something they are comfortable with. Occasionally I'll call something knowing they're probably going to shake it off, and that's okay because if they don't, hey, we have confidence in a pitch and I have the next pitch ready if I know they are going to shake it off. But I think it's funny because a couple of the dads of pitchers that I've had on the Bombers have been like, oh my God, I can't believe she shook you. And I'm like, I tell them all the time, feel free to shake me off. If it's not what you want to throw, shake it off. And they're like, yeah, but you're calling it. I'm like, I want them to believe in what they throw. And I just know, and I can go back to a story with my dad. He was calling pitches. I was still playing senior at this point. But he was calling pitches and we were in a close game and, game was on the line, called a rise ball. And I don't know how she swung at it. I just know in my head, I was like, we can't throw that pitch again. Mm-hmm. And he called it and I shook it off and he called it again and I shook it off and he called it and I think he said, just throw it. And so I threw it while she hit it and we lost. And I know for a fact I threw my glove at him and said I didn't want to throw that pitch. And like, I look back and I didn't know then it was like, oh, I have to have confidence in my pitches. But I also know the second I doubted it, you forced me to throw it, it's probably not going to be pretty good. It's not going to be good. Like it's either going to get hit or it's going to be waste. Like there's no in between. So I think it's okay to shake pitches. But I also think you have to have some knowledge of what the offense can do to shake a pitch too, or at least prior knowledge of like how you've executed, because sometimes depending on what level you are, your coaches have more info on the hitters than what you do.
Right.
But I also think as a coach, if you have that info, even at the travel level, like if we play each other 4 times, I'm going to have info on your hitters, right? So I'm having the conversation with my pitchers. Hey, last time we played them, she did this, this, and this. So we're going to try to exploit this location. So my pitcher knows, oh, she hits the changeup well. Well, if we throw it, I'm going to make sure it's in the dirt. Or she likes the inside, so we're going to try to go low out. Okay, now I have in my head that curveball may be my best pitch, but maybe for this hitter, it's not the pitch that we need to throw. So I have to figure out what else am I comfortable with. So I think it's twofold.
I think a big part that you touched on is communication. And I think that that is so important for pitchers to communicate with coaches, coaches in turn also to communicate with pitchers. And pitchers, for all our coaches out there, your pitchers are a lot more likely to trust the pitch call when they know that there is some rhyme or reason behind it and that you have a game plan. So if you do have a scouting report, or you do, you're not just randomly calling pitches, like you have a reason for these pitch calls. Being able to communicate, I like to talk to my pitchers between every inning. Like as they come in, it's not a long conversation, but we'll go through I have got the chart, and this is who we have coming up next inning, and this is what she's seen, and that kind of stuff. But for your pitchers to know that you've got a game plan, and that makes them a lot more easily trusting in you. I think that they know you're not just randomly calling stuff. And if you are randomly calling stuff, that's probably a better reason to let your pitchers shake, because but there's twofold. You're going to have a game plan. Most coaches or catchers, whoever's calling, you're seeing something or the hitter did something before, but then also your pitcher's has to feel good about what she's about to throw. But again, much more likely to feel good about it if she knows that there's a reason that she's about to throw this pitch. And, if she does shake, rather than get mad, like when she comes in, ask her why. And communicate why you wanted that other pitch. And so the next time the hitter comes up, this is what we were thinking in this situation. But open communication, open dialogue before, during, after. It's essential to a good relationship between a pitch caller and a pitcher. It has to be there.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, you can correct me if it's not the way you think, but pitcher strength is always what I take into consideration first. And then I take in consideration the hitter's strength, and then the situation of the game. Occasionally if the game's on the line, then situation of the game may trump, a hitter's strength, depending what they've done that day kind of thing. But, you have to take all three of those into account, and it's not easy. But at the end of the day, if a pitcher wants to go with their strength, and they're sometimes you may call a changeup and they may have just thrown 3 good to the last hitter, but they're looking at this hitter saying, nope, can't do it. You don't want them to have that mindset, but you'd rather them be honest to be I just did not feel like it was going to be a good situation for a changeup. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other piece is I tell, as much as we try to communicate with the catcher, I can't see if they're on the plate or off the plate. I can try to see how far up and back are they in the box. I can't see necessarily if their hands are hanging over the plate or not if I'm on the third base side for right-handed hitters, right? They see if they swung over a rise ball, because I've seen that happen, and then I'm no, we're not throwing a rise ball. She swung over that, not under that. She barely missed hitting that out of the park. So if they swing over it, but we can't necessarily always tell that from where we're sitting. So there's some info that they gather. If you're teaching them right, they should be gathering info on every pitch from the hitter, being able to watch how they take it, if they take it, how they swing, whatever. And all of that should play into. But I do feel like pitchers should have a say in the fact that you have to have conviction to execute the best pitch possible.
Absolutely. Conviction is a really good word.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's all we got for today.
Perfect. Those were a bunch of good questions. If you're listening, feel free to drop us more questions. We will do one of these as soon as we get enough listener questions for you guys. But we love sharing and love being able to give you the knowledge you want. Ask questions away, comments. As always, go subscribe, follow, like, share this episode and others. Obviously, we had Amanda Scarborough on. Go check that one out. We talked about super regionals, which are over, but that was an awesome episode for us to record. And, drop us some names. Who do you want to hear from? What pitchers would you like us to bring on the pod? We're going to try to get some guests. And as always, thank you for listening to the Pitcher Perfect podcast. I am Kat Osterman with my co-host, Holly Pierce, and we will see you guys for episode 6.
Bye, guys.